I was a 996 corporate slave. After dropping dead from overwork, I transmigrated into the emperor of the great Qin dynasty. I wasn't a warlord in a chaotic era or a ruler of a fallen nation. I was a legitimate emperor in a time of peace and prosperity, with military power in my hands and a stable court. My father was a real powerhouse. He had already dealt with the rebellious vassals and border threats, leaving me with a substantial family fortune. For the 2 years since my transition, my daily focus has been on how to keep this good life going, balancing the court, developing the economy, and incidentally filling the harem to produce a few heirs and stabilize the foundation of the state. Life was sweet. It was 800 times better than being a corporate slave. That is, until recently, when I began to feel that something was slightly off. I don't know if it's because I've been too benevolent an emperor, making me seem particularly easy to talk to, but suddenly some strange things have started mixing into the women sent into the harem and the court. That day, I was reviewing memorials in the imperial study until I was dizzy and bleary-eyed. I wanted something refreshing to drink. I gave a casual order, Wang Di Gui, give me a drink to relieve this fatigue. Not tea, I'm tired of it. The head eunuch, Wang Di Gui, scurried off. A moment later, a young palace maid entered with her head bowed, carrying a red lacquer tray. On it sat a Yueware Celadon cup. She moved toward me with extreme caution. Your Majesty, a new drink prepared by the imperial kitchen. Her voice was thin and trembling with nerves. Yet beneath that nervousness was a hint of inexplicable excitement. I didn't pay it much mind and picked up the porcelain cup. It was slightly warm to the touch. When I lifted the lid, a cloyingly sweet scent mixed with milk and tea hit my nose. Looking closer, I saw several dark, round little balls settled at the bottom of the light brown liquid. My brow furrowed, and alarm bells instantly went off in my head. This scent, this appearance. Why did it look so much like? Seeing that I didn't drink it immediately, the palace maid added softly, her voice timid yet seeking credit. Your Majesty, this is called pearl milk tea. It is a new creation of my own, made with cow's milk, tea, and brown sugar. These black pearls are made from cassava flour. They are soft, chewy, and quite novel. Please have a taste, Your Majesty. Pearl milk tea. Those 3 words struck my brain like a bolt of lightning. This was the essential weapon used by female protagonists in old-school transmigration novels to conquer an emperor's stomach and eventually his heart. Its appearance rate was second only to the birthday cake. I slowly set the cup down and looked up, truly observing this maid for the first time. She wasn't old, maybe 16 or 17. Her looks could only be described as plain at best, but her eyes were excessively bright. She was currently stealing glances upward, and the moment our eyes met, she looked down like a startled fawn, her fingers twisting the hem of her clothes. Asterisk, quite a bit of inner drama there, little sister. Asterisk, I could already imagine her internal monologue. Asterisk, drink it. Once you drink it, you'll discover a flavor like never before. Then you'll notice me, this uniquely creative palace maid. You'll ask for my name, and from then on, I'll begin my legend as a favorite of the emperor, capturing his heart through his stomach. Asterisk, unfortunately, little sister, the man standing before you is a former corporate slave who lived through the era where milk tea shops were on every corner, where cheese foam, taro balls, and boba toppings were pushed to the extreme. This ancient method milk tea of yours, which looks like it has a lethal sugar content and pearls that probably aren't even cooked through, doesn't stir the slightest bit of appetite in me. And most importantly, where are the rules? I tapped my finger on the desk, creating a steady thump-thump sound. Wang Di Gui immediately stiffened. Wang Di Gui, I spoke, my voice flat. I asked for a drink to relieve fatigue. What is this pearl milk tea? Who allowed it to be brought directly to the emperor without being reported? Since when have the rules of the imperial kitchen become so lax? Furthermore, this maid looks unfamiliar. Which palace is she from? What is her rank in the imperial kitchen? And who gave her permission to enter the imperial study to answer my summons? I threw out a string of questions. My tone wasn't heavy, but every word carried a chill. The color drained from the maid's face instantly. That spark of excitement and anticipation froze, turning into pure terror. Her legs gave way, and she fell to her knees with a thud, her voice shaking uncontrollably. "Your Majesty, please forgive me. This servant, I am a new kitchen assistant at the Imperial Kitchen. This milk tea is what?" I leaned forward slightly, looking at her. "Is it something you thought up yourself? There are hundreds of people in the Imperial Kitchen, and my daily meals follow a set protocol. Who would dare to change it at will and present such an object of unknown origin and strange form? This servant, I only wanted your Majesty to try something new." She still wanted to struggle, tears already welling in her eyes, her heart likely screaming in frenzy. "This is wrong. The plot isn't supposed to be like this. He should be curious. He should be pleasantly surprised. He should ask me how I made it. How could he be interrogating me about the rules? A taste of something new?" I leaned back against the chair and let out a cold sneer. "The Emperor's safety and the stability of the state rest upon my person. Matters of diet are of the utmost importance. If today you can unilaterally present this pearl milk tea for the sake of novelty, will someone else present poison wine for the sake of originality tomorrow? Wang Digui, this servant is here." Sweat broke out on Wang Digui's forehead. "Take this woman away and hand her over to the Department of Punishment for a thorough interrogation. Who instructed her? How did she infiltrate the Imperial Kitchen? Every ingredient used in this pearl milk tea must be inspected one by one. Check for toxicity or clashing properties. Every manager and inspector in the Imperial Kitchen responsible for this matter is to be seized for questioning. Purge and reinforce the palace regulations once more." "By your command." Wang Digui waved his hand, and two burly eunuchs immediately stepped forward, gagged the maid, and dragged her out mercilessly. Her eyes were filled with despair and disbelief as she struggled in vain while being hauled away. Silence returned to the imperial study. I massaged my temples. This pearl milk tea girl was likely a transmigrator from some corner of the world, carrying dreams of conquering the emperor with gourmet food. Unfortunately, she died at the very first step, disregarding the rules. I glanced at the cup of milk tea that was gradually growing cold and said to Wang Digui, "Pour it out. Furthermore, relay my oral decree. From this day forward, everything concerning my diet shall follow established precedents. Any new dish, without being jointly inspected and tested for poison for over half a month by at least 3 imperial physicians and the chief of the Imperial Kitchen, shall not be presented. Violators will be punished as traitors." "Yes." Wang Digui bowed in response and asked cautiously, then regarding the Imperial Kitchen, "Investigate what needs investigating, punish what needs punishing. My kitchen is not a place for them to play house or conduct culinary innovations." I waved a hand. "By the way, add a dish of roasted venison to dinner. I want it fresh." Yes. Having dealt with this little interlude, I continued reviewing my memorials. However, I was thinking to myself, since there was a first one, there will likely be a second and a third. Well, I'll deal with them as they come. Regardless, I am the emperor now, holding supreme power and standing on the moral high ground of the law. As long as I don't become a love brain, I want to see what kind of waves these female protagonists, with their weird golden finger cheats and heads full of one life, one couple fantasies, can possibly stir up. An hour later, Wang Digui returned to report. "Your Majesty, the interrogation is complete. The maid is named Qiuzu. She entered the palace just a month ago with a clean background and no one behind her. She insists the milk tea is a snack from her hometown and only wished to please your Majesty. The ingredients were inspected and found to be non-toxic. However, since she unilaterally altered your Majesty's dietary roster and trespassed into your presence, her crime is grave. According to palace rules, she is to receive 80 strokes of the cane and be sent to the laundry bureau as a slave." Wang Digui paused. "The negligent staff at the Imperial Kitchen have also been punished according to the law." "MHM." I nodded, just as I thought. In addition, Wang Digui continued his report, the Empress Dowager has organized a flower-viewing banquet. Several daughters of noble families will be performing their talents, and the Empress Dowager requests your Majesty's presence. Understood. I waved him off. After Wang Digui left, I picked up the tea beside me, which had long since turned cold, and took a sip. "'Tis proper tea tastes better. Ming de, cloyingly sweet trash." The flower-viewing banquet organized by the Empress Dowager was held at the Kainghua Pavilion in the Imperial Garden. On the surface, it was for admiring flowers and sipping tea to foster connections among imperial relatives and noble women. In reality, it was a massive royal matchmaking session. No, a preliminary concubine selection meeting. I sat at the head of the table, watching the shimmering silks and tinkling ornaments below with boredom. Eligible noble ladies of various families were dressed in their finest, exhausting every effort to display their skills, playing the zither, painting, reciting poetry, or dancing, all striving to make an impression before the Empress Dowager and me. Wang Digui leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Your Majesty, the one in the pale yellow dress, playing the zither, is the legitimate daughter of Vice Minister Liu of the Ministry of Revenue. Her skill was inherited from a master of the Kingian Pavilion. The one painting nearby is the sister of General Yuan. Her meticulously detailed bird and flower style is quite charming. The one dancing is the granddaughter of Duke Angwo. It is said her dancing is unparalleled among the capital's young ladies." I responded with non-committal hums, my mind having already drifted to the military reports from the northern frontier. Until this humble girl, Guyan Ran, begs to show her meager skills. A clear, crisp voice rang out. I looked up. I saw a young girl in an aquatic blue flowing fairy dress stepping forward gracefully. Her figure was willow-like, and her features were refined and ethereal. Among the crowd of gaudy or dignified noble women, she indeed stood out like a crane among chickens. Especially those eyes, clear and bright. When she looked at me, they held an indescribable sense of certainty and understanding. Oh, this look was interesting. Unlike the typical reverence or shyness of noble ladies meeting the emperor, she looked as if she had seen through something. Guyan Ran was to perform on the pipa. She sat down holding the instrument, and with a flick of her fingers, the music poured out. The melody was pleasant enough, but as I listened, my brows twitched slightly. The piece was technically masterful and brimming with emotion, even possessing a professional quality that seemed to transcend the era. The problem, however, was that it was too standard, so standard it felt like a meticulously rehearsed performance. Every vibrato and every finger roll was excessively precise, lacking a bit of living soul. More importantly, at a certain crescendo, she seemed to lose herself and tilted her head back slightly. As her vermilion lips parted, a set of lyrics flowed out naturally. "When will the bright moon be here?" With wine in hand, I asked the blue sky. I do not know in the celestial palaces what year it is this night. Her voice was melodious, but the lyrics were earth-shattering. My hand, holding the wine cup, froze. Shui Diao Getu, prelude to the water melody. Sushiis lyrics. This girl is quite bold. Using an eternal masterpiece as her original work at a flower banquet? Is she taking advantage of the fact that the Great Yin dynasty doesn't have a Su Dongpo? Low murmurs of discussion broke out below. Excellent lyrics. Truly magnificent. Such breadth of spirit and character. Could this really have come from a young lady of the inner chambers? Is the Gu family's young miss truly this talented? The Empress Dowager also nodded slightly, her eyes reflecting admiration. She leaned over and whispered to me, "Emperor, this Gu girl is indeed exceptionally brilliant." Gu Yan Ran rose gracefully, her cheeks flushed. Her eyes darted toward me, brimming with 3 parts shyness, 3 parts anticipation, and 4 parts of the confidence that screamed, "Be shocked by my talent." It was almost overflowing. She curtsied slightly, her voice carrying a perfect measure of humility laced with an imperceptible trace of pride. This humble servant's crude work is unworthy of such praise. I ask your Majesty and the Empress Dowager to judge it. I set down the jade thumb ring I had been idling with, my face displaying a well-calculated mix of surprise and contemplation. I did not praise her immediately. Instead, I frowned slightly, tapping my finger gently against the table. My gaze fell upon Gu Yanran's face, which was glowing with anticipation, yet I seemed to look right through her toward somewhere further away. The whispers in the hall gradually died down as everyone realized the Emperor's reaction was not one of simple admiration. Men have sorrow and joy. They part or meet again. The moon is bright or dim, and she may wax or wane. There has been nothing perfect since the olden days. I spoke slowly, repeating the lines from the poem. My voice wasn't loud, yet it reached everyone's ears clearly. May we all be blessed with longevity. Though far apart, we are still able to share the beauty of the moon together. What a fine may we all be blessed with longevity. I looked up at Gu Yanran, my gaze searching. My tone was gentle yet authoritative. Miss Gu, these lyrics are sincere, and the artistic conception is profound. They are indeed no ordinary work, especially these laments over joys and sorrows, and the wish for longevity. Unless one truly had deep, heartfelt realizations, I fear it would be difficult to write lines that touch the soul so. The flush on Gu Yanran's face deepened, thinking I had finally been moved by her talent. Just as she was about to offer some humble words, I shifted the topic. However, I paused, scanning the various expressions of the imperial kin and noble ladies present. I see that Miss Gu is only 16 and has long lived in the depths of her chambers. How could you have such a profound understanding of parting and reunion? This longing for the moon to be shared across 1,000 miles, this earnest hope for longevity. It seems more like... I stopped intentionally, picking up my teacup for a sip, leaving infinite room for imagination. The Empress Dowager's brow furrowed slightly. Below, people began to exchange glances, their expressions turning from realization to amusement. Indeed, how could a young lady of the capital, still unmarried and in the prime of her youth, with both parents living in a life of luxury, possess such deep sorrow of parting and lingering yearning? Unless Gu Yanran's face turned pale. Her previous confidence and blush vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. She hurried to defend herself. Your Majesty, please see clearly. These lyrics were merely the result of my reading the poems of those before us. I was moved by the vastness of the world and the brevity of life. It was a chance inspiration, not a matter of private romantic feelings. I finished for her, my tone remaining calm, even carrying a hint of an understanding smile. Miss Gu, there is no need be nervous. It is only natural for a young girl's heart to awaken and admire a fine young man. I am not a pedantic person. I turned and asked the Duchess of Angwo, who was sitting below, as if in passing, Duchess Angwo, I seem to vaguely recall that Miss Gu has a cousin of exceptional talent who is similar in age. The Duchess had not expected the Emperor to ask this so suddenly. She froze for a moment before hurriedly rising to answer. To answer your Majesty, there is indeed such a person. The eldest son of the second branch, named Wangsuan. He just passed the provincial examinations last year. He and Yan Ran have known each other since childhood, and their bond as cousins is very deep. As she finished, she seemed to realize something, and her expression became rather subtle. Oh, a successful candidate? A gifted scholar and a beautiful lady, childhood sweethearts. No wonder. I wore a look of "so that's how it is" and nodded. Then I looked back at Gu Yanran, who was now deathly pale and swaying on her feet. My tone grew even gentler, yet it carried the undeniable decisiveness of a sovereign. Since Miss Gu possesses such talent and harbors such tender sentiments in her heart, how could I not fulfill her wishes? Expressing feelings through poetry is the height of elegance. Since your affection for your cousin is so deep that you wish to share the moon's beauty from 1,000 miles away, I shall take charge today and bestow a marriage upon you both. It shall be a fine tale for the ages. Wang Di Gui, I commanded, not waiting for anyone to react. Draft an edict. Bestow the hand of Gu Yanran, niece of the Duke of Ingwa, to her cousin, Lu Wangsuan. Let them be married on an auspicious day. Grant a pair of jade scepters and 10 bolts of palace silk to celebrate this match of a talented lady and her paramour. As soon as the edict was issued, the entire hall was struck dumb. Gu Yanran looked as if she had been hit by a bolt of lightning. She froze completely, her pupils dilating as she stared at me in disbelief. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but she couldn't utter a single word. The maid beside her hurried to support her, preventing her from collapsing on the spot. The Duchess of Ingwa was also dumbstruck. A bestowed marriage was supposed to be an honor, but this was completely different from what they had planned. They wanted to send Yan Ran into the palace, not marry her off to her own cousin. But the emperor's word was final. The edict had been issued, framed as an act of grace to fulfill a romantic wish. Who would dare object? The Empress Dowager opened her mouth, but it ultimately turned into an almost inaudible sigh. She glanced at me with a complex look, but said nothing more. The other noble ladies were shocked at first, but soon many felt a secret sense of relief, even a hint of satisfaction. Asterisk, that's what you get for hogging the spotlight. That's what you get for flaunting your talent. Well done. You've sung yourself right out of the running. People have sorrows and joys, partings and reunions. His Majesty is making sure you reunite right now. Let's see if you still have any partings to complain about. Asterisk. No, Your Majesty. This servant. Gu Yanran finally found her voice. Her tone was thick with tears and despair as she tried to make one last struggle. My smile faded slightly, and I looked at her with a calm gaze. Miss Gu, are you dissatisfied with my decree? Or is it that the one you long for across 1,000 miles is not actually your cousin from the Liu family? The last sentence carried a distinct chill. Gu Yanran shuddered violently, and all her words were choked back down. What could she say? That the poem was plagiarized? That would be the capital crime of deceiving the emperor. Not just her, but the entire Gu family and the Duke of Ingwa's household would be ruined. Say she had no feelings for her cousin? Then, as a sheltered young lady, who was she thinking of when she wrote such verses? It would be even harder to explain and would tarnish her family's reputation. She was caught in a trap of her own making, unable to defend herself. She could only collapse to the floor, tears and snot flowing, as she kowtowed mechanically. This servant, thanks your Majesty, for your great grace. Every word sounded like it was being squeezed through her teeth, filled with resentment and total collapse. I nodded with satisfaction, as if I had performed a great deed. Very well. On the day you wed, I shall have another gift sent. You are tired today. Someone help Miss Gu down to rest. Palace maid stepped forward to support the nearly limp Gu Yanran as they led her away. Her soul shorn back as she left, looking as if her world had ended, stood in stark contrast to her radiant brilliance just moments before. The atmosphere in Kainghua Pavilion turned subtle. After this incident, the subsequent talent displays felt dull. The noble ladies were all walking on eggshells, terrified that if they made a mistake, the emperor might thoughtfully marry them off to some cousin as well. The flower-viewing banquet ended abruptly. On the way back to Qinxing Palace, Wang Digui followed with small steps and whispered with a smile, Your Majesty is wise. This way, you have saved the face of the Duke's household while cutting off certain people's ambitions. Miss Gu's poem was indeed a bit too heartfelt. I snorted. A girl of 15 or 16, what does she know of sorrows, joys, partings, and reunions, or the moon being full or crescent? And wishing for longevity? If she didn't already have someone in her heart, she was just being melodramatic. Since that's the case, I shall fulfill those sentiments. The Duke's house wants to send a daughter into the palace? Fine, but she must be pure and simple-minded. A talented woman, with her heart full of someone else, is more than I care to handle. Wang Digui bowed repeatedly in agreement. I sneered inwardly. Plagiarizing Su sure, it's just your bad luck. Even unluckier for you. You chose a poem about longing and philosophical detachment. In my eyes as emperor, there's only one explanation for an unmarried noble lady to have such deep emotional experiences. She has someone in her heart. Since she does, she should marry him quickly. Don't come to the palace to annoy me, and don't let me stand in the way of your sharing the moon from afar. Trying to conquer me with talent? You should check first if your talent is just digging a pit for yourself. This plagiarism-mongering female lead, Guyan Ran, if she has some poetry and song system, it would probably record this frustrating entry. Asterisk host used Shui Diao Ghetto. When will the bright moon appear skill? Effect: outstanding. Successfully caught the target's attention. Reward obtained: one marriage to your cousin. Asterisk: I wonder whether her childhood sweetheart of a cousin, Lu Wengsuan, will be ecstatic or completely bewildered when he receives this imperial decree of marriage falling from the sky. However, that is none of my business. The news of Guyan Ran being exiled to her own cousin by a single marriage contract spread through the capital as if it had grown wings. Undercurrents surged among the circle of noble ladies. Some sighed, some gloated, but most were struck by a sense of caution. The emperor's mind was difficult to fathom. Having too much talent or being too clever was not necessarily a good thing. The inner palace also remained quiet for a few days, until the autumn hunt approached, and both the court and the harem began busying themselves with a list of those accompanying the emperor. This afternoon, I summoned several generals to the imperial study to discuss the security for the autumn hunt and the rotation of troops on the northern border. Just as we reached a critical point, Wang Degui entered quietly and whispered in my ear, "Your Majesty, someone from the Empress Dowager's palace has brought word. It is said that noble Lady Duan of Yongshou Palace suffered from a nightmare and convulsions last night and has been babbling rather inappropriate things. The Empress Dowager asked you to visit when you have time." Noble Lady Duan? I recalled briefly. She entered through last year's selection, the daughter of a director in the Ministry of Rights. After being titled a noble lady, she had remained inconspicuous, the type you couldn't find in a crowd. Nightmares? Babbling? I dismissed the generals and headed toward Sinang Palace. I wondered to myself, what kind of trouble is brewing at this critical juncture? Could it be another female-oriented web novel protagonist who couldn't hold back anymore? Upon arriving at Sinang Palace, the Empress Dowager's expression was grim. She had dismissed her attendants, leaving only 2 trusted elderly maids. "The Emperor is here," the Empress Dowager said, rubbing her temples. That noble Lady Duan suddenly fell into a state of hysteria last night. The maids on duty heard her crying out in her sleep about the Barong invading, Haishui City falling, and your Majesty being in danger. It scared them so much they only dared report it this morning. The Barong? Haishui City? My gaze sharpened. The northern border had indeed been unsettled, with Barong tribes causing occasional disturbances, but a large-scale invasion? Haishui City was a major northern stronghold with sturdy walls and an experienced commander. Why would it be indefensible? With the autumn hunt imminent, such words that could destabilize military morale. Has a physician seen her? I asked. They have. They said it was excessive fear and a loss of spirit, and prescribed a sedative. The Empress Dowager frowned and continued. But after she woke up, she became quite lucid and insisted to my people that she had a prophetic dream. In the dream, 100,000 Barong iron cavalry raided Haishui City. An internal spy opened the gates, the commander was killed, and the Barong drove straight toward the capital. She also said that during the autumn hunt, your Majesty would encounter assassins in the hunting grounds and have a narrow escape from death. The Empress Dowager shook her head as she spoke. Pure nonsense. Yet she speaks with such vivid detail, even naming the Deputy General of Haishui City and several secret passages. I felt truly uneasy, which is why I called for you. Prophetic dreams? Foreknowledge? My mind raced. Noble Lady Duan, daughter of a Ministry of Rights official, had been in the palace for a year, unnoticed. Suddenly, she dreams of major state and military affairs thousands of miles away, with perfect detail. If this were true, she wouldn't be a concubine. She be a state preceptor. Where is she? I asked. Still in her own palace. I have people watching her, the Empress Dowager said. Emperor, what do you make of this? I will go have a look. I stood up. Mother, rest easy. Whether it is true or false, I will judge for myself. In the side hall of Yongsho Palace, noble Lady Duan leaned against the couch, her face pale. Seeing me, she struggled to rise and salute, but I gestured for her to stay. I heard you had an ominous dream. I sat in a nearby chair, my tone calm. Noble Lady Duan's eyes reddened, and tears rolled down. Combined with her qingxi, yet haggard face, she truly looked like a delicate pear blossom in the rain. Her voice trembled with lingering fear. Your Majesty? I was trapped in a nightmare last night. It was filled with blood, the curved blades of the Beirong, the tragic fall of Haishui City, and Your Majesty. She broke into sobs, seemingly terrified. Speak slowly. What did you see in the dream? Be specific. I signaled a maid to hand her a handkerchief. Noble Lady Duan wiped her tears and recounted the dream intermittently, but with exceptional clarity. The name of the Beirong commander, troop deployments, the time of the attack, which section of the Haishui city wall was dilapidated, which deputy general had been bribed, and even the specific locations and numbers of the assassins lying in wait at the hunting grounds. The details were so thorough and the logic so sound that it was absolutely not something a woman confined to the inner palace could have fabricated. Especially regarding the defense and the generals of Haishui City. Some details were more meticulous than what even the most recent military reports might mention. After she finished speaking, she looked at me with a mix of eagerness and dread. Your Majesty, this servant knows this matter sounds absurd, but the dream was too real. This servant is truly terrified, fearing it might become a self-fulfilling prophecy, endangering Your Majesty and the state. Your Majesty, it is better to believe it than not. I implore Your Majesty to take precautions early. If it had been any other emperor, hearing such a detailed warning, even if they did not fully believe it, they would likely have become wary and looked at this noble lady who could foresee danger in a different light, perhaps even developing a sense of reliance and pity. Unfortunately, she encountered me. I listened quietly until the end, my face devoid of expression, my fingers habitually tapping the armrest. Noble Lady Duan, I spoke. Do your father or brothers hold positions in the Northern Border Army? Or do they have old ties with Northern generals? Noble Lady Duan was stunned and shook her head quickly, replying to Majesty, my father is in the Ministry of Rights, and my brother serves in the Imperial Capital Guard. They have no contact with the North. Then, before entering the palace, did you ever read books on military strategy? Or did you enjoy inquiring about border warfare? I lived deep in the inner chambers, reading only poetry and the precepts for women. I have never dabbled in military matters. She answered quickly, but her eyes flickered. Oh, I nodded. That is strange indeed. A woman of the inner palace who has never touched military affairs can, in a dream, not only foresee the detailed plans of the Beirong invasion, but also know exactly which deputy general in Haishui City might be bribed and where the city walls are weak. This dream is a bit too comprehensive. Noble Lady Duan's face turned even paler. Your Majesty, this servant does not know why either. It is just as the dream showed. I dare not hide anything. Dare not hide anything. I laughed softly, though the smile did not reach my eyes. How did you know that Haishui City's deputy, General Lu Jinai, had a dispute with a wealthy merchant over gambling debts last month? And how did you know that when the western section of the Haishui City wall was repaired 3 years ago, the craftsmen cut corners, leaving hidden flaws? These things are not even necessarily recorded in the Ministry of War's archives or the secret reports of the northern governor. My tone suddenly turned harsh. Speak, for where did you obtain this information? Who told you? What is your collusion with the Beirong? That last sentence exploded in the hall like a thunderclap. Noble Lady Duan panicked completely. She had not expected me to play by a different set of rules. Instead of being moved by the warning, I had pointed directly at the core issue, the source of her information. She rolled off the couch with a thud and fell to her knees, tears and snot flowing. Your Majesty, have mercy. I didn't. I am loyal to your Majesty. How could I collude with the Baron? These were truly seen in my dream. Your Majesty, I am willing to guarantee it with my life. Seen in a dream? I stood up and looked down at her. Then I must ask, since you dreamed of me being assassinated during the autumn hunt, do you know who directed the assassins? What weapons were used? Exactly how was the assassination carried out? Noble Lady Duan was stumped. Her eyes shifted in panic, and she stammered, I only saw your Majesty in danger. The details I didn't see clearly. Did you not see clearly, or did you simply not know? I sneered. If you're going to fabricate a lie, at least make it consistent. Your so-called warning about the North is overly detailed, yet the part about my assassination is vague. Is that not a contradiction? I see that you're not giving a warning, but have ulterior motives. Using the excuse of a dream to spread rumors that the North is in danger and my life is at risk. Is it to shake the army's morale and disrupt the court? Or is it to catch my attention for some nefarious plot? Your Majesty, I am wrong. Noble Lady Duan shook like a sieve, kowtowing repeatedly. I have nothing but a loyal heart, worried for your Majesty's safety and the state. I am willing. Enough. I interrupted her, my eyes cold as ice. Is your loyalty spreading such sensational and baseless rumors? Is your worry such that you cannot even dream of the details of my assassination? Noble Lady Duan Li-Shur, for deceiving the public with demonic words and recklessly discussing military and political affairs. Your heart is truly punishable. I turned to Wang Digui, who had been waiting outside. Throw this woman into the cold palace and keep her under strict guard. No one is allowed to visit without my decree. Thoroughly investigate all items in her palace, her correspondence, and her maternal family, the family of Li Jingzi, Secretary of the Ministry of Rights. See who they have contacted recently, and if there is anything unusual, if there is any suspicion of colluding with the enemy or treason, punish them without leniency. This servant obeys. Wang Digui waved his hand, and several fierce eunuchs immediately stepped forward, gagged Noble Lady Duan, and dragged her out. Her desperate whimpers soon vanished outside the hall. The Empress Dowager had been watching in silence. Only now did she sigh. Is the Emperor being a bit too harsh? What if she really... There are no what-ifs, Imperial Mother, I said decisively. Military affairs of the North are top secret. How could a woman deep in the palace know so many details if she were not colluding with others? Even if it were truly a prophetic dream, how can such matters involving the nation's fate be spoken of recklessly by a harem woman? If she can dream of the northern defenses today, can she dream of my private records tomorrow and the location of the imperial seal the day after? Once this precedent is set, there will be endless trouble. I soften my tone. Besides, with the autumn hunt approaching, such talk that shakes morale and curses the sovereign must be severely punished as a warning to others. As for the northern matter she mentioned, I will naturally send people to secretly investigate and verify them to strengthen our defenses. But we must never lose our footing or give others an opening because of the ravings of a single woman. The Empress Dowager was thoughtful and finally nodded. The Emperor has considered everything. It was my womanly compassion speaking. We shall handle this matter as the Emperor wishes. Leaving Yongshou Palace, my face darkened. Foreknowledge? Rebirth? Carrying memories, regardless of which one it is, to reveal things that can only be known in the future in this manner, especially involving major national military affairs, is simply a path to one's own death. Keep someone who can predict the future by my side? Do I think my seat on the dragon throne is too stable? If she can dream of a northern Rome invasion today, will she dream of when I pass away tomorrow? Which prince will succeed me? Who in the court will become a powerful minister? This kind of uncertain, uncontrollable prophetic ability is more terrifying to an emperor than swords and spears. It is, in itself, the greatest factor of instability, a hidden danger that must be eliminated. Furthermore, her choice to give a warning at this timing and in this manner was utterly stupid. Either she was too eager to show off, or she was blinded by her so-called future memories or system tasks. Wang Digui, your servant is here. Keep a close watch on the Cold Palace. Interrogate her thoroughly, but do not let her die. Also, conduct a deep investigation into the Li clan. As for the details in her dream, especially concerning Blackwater City, send secret letters to the governor of the northern border and the garrison commander of Blackwater City. Have them verify the information secretly and strengthen their defenses, but do not make a public scene, lest we alert the enemy. Yes, this servant understands. I looked up at the high, distant autumn sky. A reborn girl? Predicting the future? Playing those tricks in front of me? A transmigrated emperor? I'm sorry, but my future is in my own hands. Anyone who tries to get close to me or influence me by relying on spoilers, no matter how powerful your golden finger is, will have only one end: to be crushed by imperial power under the charges of deluding the public with heresy, illicitly discussing military and state affairs, and harboring traitorous intent. The mess regarding noble Lady Duan's prophetic dreams had just been cleared up, and the court and the harem had finally been quiet for less than 2 months. Just as I was enjoying the leisure of a peaceful reign and pondering where to slack off and hunt during the autumn excursion, a commotion broke out at Yuxiu Palace. The head maid serving Lady Qin ran to my presence, beaming with joy, to report that her mistress's period was 7 or 8 days late. Lately, she had also been drowsy and nauseous. It seemed she was expecting. She had come specifically to bring the joyous news to His Majesty. I was reviewing memorials at the time. Hearing this, my brush paused, and the vermilion ink bled into a small red smudge on the paper. Period is late? Drowsy and nauseous? Pregnant? I slowly set down the vermilion brush and ran through the facts in my head. Lady Qin? I had a vague impression of her. She had entered the palace through the draft half a year ago. She was decent-looking and had a quiet personality. Had we spent the night together? We had. When was the last time? Wang Digui, I called out. Your servant is here. When was the last time I went to Yuxiu Palace? Wang Digui truly lived up to his position as the head eunuch. His mind was sharp. He immediately bowed and replied, Returning to your Majesty, it was 10 days ago on the night of the 3rd day of the 2nd month. Your Majesty finished reviewing memorials late and happened to stroll near Yuxiu Palace, so you stayed the night with Lady Qin. 10 days ago, the 3rd of the 2nd month. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers mindlessly tapping the table. 10 days, and her period is already 7 or 8 days late. Isn't this pregnancy reaction a bit too rushed? Even if she really is pregnant, it's only been how many days? The embryo probably hasn't even properly implanted yet, right? And yet she already feels she's pregnant. She even couldn't wait to report it. That slight sense of unease bubbled up from the depths of my mind like bubbles in water. This rhythm, this impatient energy, why does it reek of a familiar, cringe-inducing plot from a female-oriented web novel? Has a physician examined her yet? I asked the kneeling maid. The joy on the maid's face stiffened. She hurriedly said, Returning to your Majesty, not yet. My mistress said this is a monumental occasion, and it was only right to inform your Majesty and the Empress Dowager first before summoning a physician for confirmation. Oh, she hasn't even been diagnosed yet, but she's already shouting it from the rooftops. Is she afraid others won't find out, or is she exceptionally confident in her own intuition? The corners of my mouth curled. Is that so? Then I shall go see for myself. Wang Digui, bring Sun Shijhen, the judicial officer of the Imperial Academy of Medicine. Yes, the imperial carriage set off for Yuxiu Palace. On the way there, I was musing that if she really was the carrier of one of those high fertility systems I suspected, her execution was a bit too crude. Couldn't she have waited a few more days until the pulse was stable? Upon arriving at Yuxiu Palace, Lady Qin was already waiting at the entrance, supported by her attendants. Her face was flushed with health, and her eyes were filled with joy. As she moved about, I raised a hand to stop her. My dear consort says she is with child. I sat down inside the hall, my tone casual. Has the imperial physician seen you yet? Lady Cheen sat delicately in a lower seat, her hand instinctively resting on her lower abdomen, her face wearing the shyness and joy of a first-time mother. In response to your majesty, not yet. It is just that my monthly cycle is a few days late, and I have been feeling lethargic and sleepy. Even the smell of anything greasy makes me feel unwell. I thought I might be pregnant, and was so overcome with joy that I rushed to share the good news with you. I nodded. It is a joyous occasion. Head physician's son, give Lady Cheen a careful examination. Sun Shijhen, the head of the Imperial Academy of Medicine, stepped forward. Holding his breath in concentration, he placed his fingers on Lady Cheen's wrist. He checked the left hand, then the right. His brows furrowed slightly, then relaxed, repeating the process several times until a faint sweat appeared on his forehead. After a long silence, he withdrew his hand and bowed to me. Your Majesty, Lady Cheen's pulse is slippery and slightly rapid, like beads rolling on a plate. Indeed, an indication of pregnancy. However, the term is still very early and the pulse is not yet stable. This old official needs a few more days of observation to confirm. He was being tactful, but his meaning was clear. It looked like it, but he couldn't be 100% sure because it hadn't been long enough. I sneered inwardly, as I thought, 10 days. Even if Hua Tuo himself were resurrected, he wouldn't dare claim it was a pregnancy pulse with such certainty. Sun Shijhen was being extremely cautious by leaving himself so much room. Lady Cheen's smile didn't waver, as if she hadn't caught the physician's hesitation. She spoke softly. I have troubled the head physician. Whether it is true or not, it is all by your Majesty's grace. Seeing her look so certain, my suspicions deepened. She was either hopelessly stupid or completely fearless. Since that is the case, rest well. I picked up a teacup and took a sip, speaking as if in passing. If it really is a pregnancy, it would be a blessing for the great Een. I actually hope my dear consort can bear me 2 imperial sons at once. That would truly be a double blessing and an auspicious omen. Having finished, I looked up and carefully observed Lady Cheen's reaction. I saw a flash of light, nearly imperceptible, dart through her eyes. A mix of ecstasy, smugness, and a sense of just as I expected. Though she masked it immediately, her lips curving into a submissive arc. Your Majesty must be joking. Twins are a gift from heaven. How could I dare dream of such a thing? I only pray for the child to be safe and healthy. Then I shall be content. Even so, her hand resting on her abdomen gave a barely noticeable, gentle stroke. I was now 80 or 90% sure. Good, very good. You want twins? I'll see just how capable this system of yours is. Head physician's son, I set down the teacup. You will personally oversee Lady Cheen's pregnancy. Examine her every 3 days and report the medical records directly to me. Whatever medicine is needed, take it from the Imperial Academy's finest stores. You must ensure the Imperial heir is secure. This old official obeys. Sun Shijhen quickly complied. I offered Lady Cheen a few more words of encouragement to rest well before turning to leave. As I exited Yuxiu Palace, I instructed Wang Digui keep a close eye on Lady Cheen's palace. Her diet, her daily routine, the people she contacts, and the words she speaks report everything to me without missing a single detail. As for physician's son, let him examine her carefully and report honestly, but keep the news of Lady Cheen's pregnancy under wraps for now. There is no need to spread it. This servant understands. Wang Digui replied, catching my drift. The next few days were peaceful. Lady Cheen rested quietly. She had a good appetite, slept well, and except for occasional morning sickness, experienced little discomfort. Yuxiu Palace was sealed as tight as an iron barrel. All information went in, but none went out. 7 days later, Sun Shijhen returned to report. This time, the old man's expression was even stranger than before, a mix of disbelief and a hint of dread. Your Majesty, I checked Lady Cheen's pulse today, and this pulse. He weighed his words carefully. It is as slippery as beads, flowing smoothly and meeting the finger with a roundness that is even more pronounced and powerful than 7 days ago. Moreover, it seems there are two pulses running together. Two pulses? I raised an eyebrow. Explain. It is the sign of twins, Your Majesty. Sun Shijin lowered his voice, trembling slightly. But it has been such a short time. I have practiced medicine for decades and have never seen a double pulse detectable when the pregnancy is less than 20 days along. This is truly incredible. I finished the sentence for him. Sun Shijin fell to his knees with a thud. Your humble servant is terrified. This pulse is indeed unmistakable, but the timing. Your servant truly does not understand. I beg Your Majesty to look into this. I'm aware, I said calmly. Assistant Director Sun, record everything clearly. The date Lady Qin claimed her menses were delayed, the detailed circumstances of your 2 pulse readings, the changes in the pulse, and all of Lady Qin's symptoms. There must be no errors. Furthermore, go and summon the court historian and the female official in charge of the concubine's menstrual records. Yes, your servant obeys. As Sun Shijin withdrew, his steps were unsteady. Before long, the court historian and the female official arrived with thick record books. I opened the court history and found the entry for the 3rd day of the 2nd month. It clearly stated, the emperor visited the palace of elegant grace, Lady Qin. I then flipped to Lady Qin's menstrual records. The most recent entry was from the 6th to the 11th day of the 1st month. According to the records, her cycle was approximately 28 to 30 days. Lady Qin claimed her menses were delayed by 7 or 8 days, which means she should have had her menses around the 5th of the 2nd month, but they have not arrived to this day. Is that correct? I asked the female official. The official answered, trembling, to answer Your Majesty, based on Lady Qin's past records, that is indeed the case. On the 3rd of the 2nd month, when I visited her, it was not during her fertile window, correct? To answer Your Majesty, based on the cycle, Lady Qin's fertile window was approximately between the 20th and 27th of the 1st month. The 3rd of the 2nd month had already passed. The official lowered her head even further. I closed the ledger and looked out at the heavy darkness of the night. Visited on the 3rd of the 2nd month, not during ovulation. Menses due around the 5th did not arrive. On the 13th, Lady Qin reported she was pregnant, and the physician barely managed to detect a slippery pulse. On the 20th, the physician detected a suspected twin pulse. The timeline did not add up. The ovulation window did not add up. The speed and intensity with which the pulse manifested were even more preposterous. Not to mention, I had casually mentioned twins, and 7 days later, actually became a twin pulse. This was not something medical skill could explain, nor was it a coincidence that could be covered up. There was only one possibility. Lady Qin was a problem, and the thing in her belly was an even greater problem. I stood up, my voice echoing in the empty hall. Wang Digui, your servant is here. Pass down my decree. Lady Qin of the Li clan has desecrated the inner palace, attempted to confound the imperial bloodline, and used sorcerous means to fake a pregnancy to deceive the emperor. Her intentions are damnable. Strip her of her title immediately and banish her to the cold palace. As for the abomination in her womb, whether real or fake, dispose of it immediately without error. All servants of the Palace of Elegant Grace are to be sent to the Department of Punishment for rigorous interrogation. Imperial physician Sun Shijin failed to detect this abnormality in a timely manner. He is to be docked a year's salary as a warning to others. The decree was cold and brooked no argument. Wang Digui's whole body stiffened. He bowed and said, "Your servant obeys the decree." I sat back on the dragon throne and rubbed the bridge of my nose. Desecrating the palace? Perhaps not necessarily. Confounding the bloodline? It was hard to say if that thing even counted as bloodline. But these two charges were enough to shut everyone's mouths and ensure her eternal ruin. Offspring are the foundation of the state. the most sensitive nerve of the imperial family. I would rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let one slip through, especially a pregnancy this blatantly contrary to common sense and shrouded in such eerie tones. Thinking she could rely on a system to play tricks like a guaranteed hit or wish fulfillment to gain a foothold in the harem, or even rely on the child to gain status in the future. She was dreaming. My princes and princesses must be untainted, legitimate, and able to withstand any scrutiny. Any fetus of unknown origin, suspicious timing, or bizarre growth is a hidden danger that must be eliminated. A pregnancy system? It is indeed a powerful cheat. Unfortunately, the host was too stupid and acted with too much haste, lacking basic reverence for palace protocol and physiological common sense. Before a transmigrated emperor like me, one who knows when ovulation occurs and understands basic biology, your little miracles are nothing more than self-detonating explosives. As Lady Qin was dragged away, her shrill cries echoed through the air, repeatedly screaming, "Your Majesty, please see the truth. This is your own flesh and blood. It is an auspicious omen of twins." Auspicious? I stood upon the high steps, watching with an expressionless face. If it were truly auspicious, how could the timing be so off? If it were truly auspicious, would you really conceive twins just because I said I liked them? Do you take me for a turtle in a wishing pond? The gates of the cold palace would give her and her pregnancy system some time to cool their heads. Her system would likely be so frustrated that it would crash. It was simply its bad luck to encounter an emperor who didn't play by the rules and actually understood a bit of physiology. Lady Qin's farce of auspicious twins ended with the cold palace and a bowl of abortifacient medicine. The entire harem underwent another purge. Everyone lived in fear, speaking only in hushed whispers for fear of inviting misfortune. I enjoyed the peace and quiet. Fortuitously, a victory report arrived from the border. A small group of wronged invaders in the north had been repelled, with hundreds beheaded. It was a cause for celebration. A victory banquet was held at Qinghua Hall. Sovereigns and subjects shared in the joy, and the atmosphere finally lightened. After several rounds of wine, amidst the peak of the music, the Empress Dowager, sitting below me, suddenly furrowed her brow and lightly pressed her temples. I noticed and leaned over, whispering, "Is Mother unwell?" The Empress Dowager waved her hand and forced a smile. "It is nothing, just an old ailment. My migraines are acting up again. I will be fine after some rest. The Emperor need not worry." The Empress Dowager's migraines were a chronic issue that flared up periodically. The imperial physicians had exhausted their methods, but could only manage the pain, never eradicate it. It was prone to flare up whenever she was fatigued or when the seasons changed. The banquet continued, but I could see the Empress Dowager was forcing herself to endure. Just as I was about to order the banquet to end early to escort her back to her palace, a Zei sitting in the middle of the concubine section suddenly rose and gracefully walked toward the Empress Dowager, bowing low. Seeing Her Majesty's health in decline truly pains my heart. My family's ancestors passed down a secret recipe for a pill that has miraculous effects on relieving the pain of migraines. I always carry it with me for emergencies. If Her Majesty does not object, may I offer it in hopes of easing your pain? Her voice was clear and melodious, her posture humble. I looked up. It was Lady Lin, who had entered the palace during last year's selection. Her father was the vice minister of the court of imperial sacrifices, a family of noble standing. She wasn't the most beautiful, but she had a calm temperament. Since entering the palace, she had been dutiful and kept a low profile. At that moment, she held a small, exquisitely crafted gilded flat round box. Her eyes were clear and filled with concern. The Empress Dowager was somewhat surprised and looked at me. I gave a slight nod. With so many people watching, Lady Lin had taken the initiative to offer medicine. To refuse would seem heartless. Moreover, the Empress Dowager's migraines were indeed excruciating. "It is rare to see such thoughtfulness," the Empress Dowager said gently. "Bring it forward." Lady Lin stepped forward, and carefully opened the golden box. Inside, lined with velvet, lay 3 pea-sized, white, smooth, round tablets. They emitted a very faint, cool scent that did not belong to any common medicinal herb. This medicine is called the brain-clearing, pain-settling pill. It should be taken with warm water, Lady Lynn explained softly, her eyes darting almost imperceptibly toward me with a trace of hidden expectation. My heart skipped a beat. A secret pill? White tablets. This shape, this scent. I had seen plenty of the honey-bound, wax-sealed pills used by the imperial physicians, but I had never seen such perfectly uniform little white tablets. Wang Digui took the golden box. Naturally, it had to be examined by the attending physician first. The physician looked at it closely, sniffed it, tested for poison with a silver needle, and even scraped off a bit of powder to taste. Frowning, he bowed to the Empress Dowager and me. "Your Majesty, Empress Dowager, the ingredients of this medicine are peculiar. This old servant has never seen the likes of them. The silver needle did not change color, and there are no common toxins. However, the shape and scent are truly foreign. Whether or not to consume it, I ask your Majesties to decide." The Empress Dowager hesitated. Lady Lynn spoke up at the right moment, her voice carrying a perfectly measured earnestness. "Your Imperial Majesty, though this medicine has a peculiar form, it is prepared according to my family's secret recipe and is entirely non-toxic. I am willing to test the medicine myself to prove its safety." As she spoke, she reached for the tablet. "Enough." The Empress Dowager waved a hand. Her head was throbbing so violently that she could no longer be bothered with such precautions. "I shall trust you this once. Bring one here." An attendant brought warm water, and the Empress Dowager swallowed the pill. Everyone in the room held their breath, watching. In less than the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea, the Empress Dowager's furrowed brows gradually relaxed. She lowered the hand that had been pressing against her temple and let out a long sigh of relief. "Oh, this medicine is truly effective." The throbbing in my head seems to have subsided. A low murmur of admiration rippled through the hall. Many concubines cast glances at Lady Lynn that were either envious or resentful. Lady Lynn pressed her lips into a smile and lowered her eyes, her posture becoming even more humble. However, the slight tilt of her chin betrayed a hint of self-satisfaction. I looked at her, a smile of approval on my face. Lady Lynn's filial piety is commendable, and she has performed a great service by presenting this medicine. She shall be rewarded. I thank your Majesty for your profound grace." Lady Lynn bowed gracefully. As she rose, she shot a quick glance at me. In her eyes, beyond gratitude, there seemed to be something else, a secret joy that whispered, "I have finally caught your attention." The banquet continued, and the Empress Dowager's spirits were visibly much improved. Lady Lynn returned to her seat, her back held ramrod straight, as she accepted the scrutinizing gazes from all directions. I, however, made a private mental note. A family secret? Unique ingredients that even the head of the Imperial Academy of Medicine could not recognize? And such rapid results? A few days later, the Empress Dowager suffered another bout of her chronic headaches and summoned Lady Lynn to attend to her. Lady Lynn once again presented the brain-clearing, pain-stabilizing pill. After the Empress Dowager took it, the pain was quickly alleviated. Gradually, Lady Lynn's reputation for being highly skilled in medicine and possessing a miraculous family remedy spread quietly throughout the inner palace. Along with this, she became a favorite of the Empress Dowager, often summoned to chat and alleviate her boredom. On this day, I went to the Palace of Benevolent Peace to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager and happened to find Lady Lynn there. She was speaking to the Empress Dowager in a soft, gentle voice. Seeing me enter, she hurried to her feet to perform her salutations. "The Emperor is here," the Empress Dowager said with a kind smile. "We were just speaking of this girl, Lady Lynn. She is clever and knows a great deal. This chronic headache of mine has persisted for years, and the Imperial Academy of Medicine was powerless against it, yet her medicine manages to resolve the crisis every time." I smiled. Being able to ease mother's pain is indeed a great merit. Lady Lin has been most thoughtful. Lady Lin's cheeks flushed slightly, and her voice was soft. It is my blessing to be able to share the Empress Dowager's burdens. However, as I observe the Empress Dowager's condition, it seems to be caused by an accumulation of stasis within the skull, which is pressing against the meridians. Relying solely on medicine for pain relief only treats the symptoms. It is difficult to uproot the cause. She looked up at me as she spoke, her gaze clear and filled with the focus of a physician. A method is recorded in my family's secret manuals that might cure this ailment permanently. However, this method is quite shocking to the world. I do not know if I should speak of it. Asterisk, here it comes. Asterisk, I sneered inwardly, but on the surface, I showed only curiosity and concern. Oh, there is actually a way to cure it permanently? You may speak freely, Lady Lin. If you can resolve Mother's long-standing illness, I shall reward you handsomely. The Empress Dowager also looked at her with anticipation. Lady Lin took a deep breath, as if she had made a difficult decision. Her voice dropped lower, yet she spoke with absolute clarity. This method is called a craniotomy to remove the lesion. It involves using a sharp blade to cut open the scalp and the skull to find the site of the accumulation or disease within. Once it is removed or repaired, the pressure will vanish of its own accord, and the headaches will be eradicated forever. As the words fell, the main hall of the Palace of Benevolent Peace plunged into a dead silence. The smile on the Empress Dowager's face froze. The nannies and palace maids standing nearby all stared with wide eyes, as if they had heard something utterly terrifying and absurd. A few even instinctively covered their mouths, gasping for air. Opening the skull, cutting into the head, taking things out, how was this curing an illness? This was clearly murder. This was sorcery. My expression darkened, and I stared sharply at Lady Lin. Lady Lin, do you know what you were saying? Opening a skull to remove something? How can a human head be opened at will? Where did you hear such appalling words? And what exactly is this secret manual of your ancestors? Lady Lin seemed not to have expected this reaction. She likely thought we would be shocked by her advanced medical knowledge, and then beg her to perform the procedure. A flash of panic crossed her face, but she quickly steadied herself, trying her best to maintain a serious and professional demeanor. Your Majesty, please discern the truth. Your servant is not speaking nonsense. Though this method sounds terrifying, it is grounded in reason. An ancestor of mine once used it to save someone with a severe head injury. The Empress Dowager's person is most precious. If her condition is delayed because of fear of this method, I simply cannot bear it. As she spoke, she grew impassioned, as if she were the only loyal official and skilled physician who possessed the truth and dared to speak out. Absurd. I slammed the table and stood up abruptly, glaring at her. Consort Lin, I treated you with kindness only because you offered medicine to ease the Empress Dowager's pain, a minor service. How dare you push your luck and deceive the masses with such outlandish, sinister arts that would harm her sacred body? A craniotomy? What audacity! The Empress Dowager's body is of incomparable value. How could you dare suggest such a desecration? The more I spoke, the more furious my voice became. The Imperial Medical Academy gathers the world's most renowned doctors, experts in the arts of medicine. They have carefully treated the Empress Dowager's chronic headaches for years. Even if they haven't uprooted the cause, they have preserved her health. You are a mere woman of the inner palace. It was pure luck that you knew a few folk remedies, yet you dare to propose such an unheard-of, cruel method as opening the skull. I see you do not wish to cure her, but rather harbor a treacherous heart and ill intentions. Pallid and trembling from my rebuke, Consort Lin hurriedly knelt. Your Majesty, please appease your anger. Your servant has no such intention. I only have the Empress Dowager's best interests at heart. Though this method is risky, it has miraculous effects. I am willing to guarantee it with my life. Guarantee it? I interrupted with a cold sneer. What is your life worth? Is the Empress Dowager's sacred body something you can use as collateral? Guards, Wang Digui, who had been waiting outside, immediately entered with his men. Consort Lin has deceived the masses and proposed a sinister art to harm the Empress Dowager's body. Her intent is loathsome. I spoke every word with heavy emphasis. Strip her of her titles immediately and cast her into the cold palace. Confiscate all of her so-called ancestral secret medicines and hand them to the Imperial Medical Academy for inspection. Search her palace thoroughly. Any unknown objects or heterodox books are to be destroyed. Her father, Lin Wen, Vice Minister of the Court of Imperial Sacrifices, has failed in his daughter's upbringing. Dock his salary for 1 year and order him to reflect on his errors behind closed doors. Your Majesty, I have been wronged. Every word I said is true. This method really can cure the headaches, Your Majesty. Consort Lin panicked completely, crying and struggling as she tried to defend herself. Gag her! Drag her out! I waved my hand in disgust. The guard stepped forward, efficiently gagging her and dragging her away. Her cries came to an abrupt halt. The hall fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the Empress Dowager's slightly rapid breathing. I turned and bowed to the Empress Dowager. Imperial Mother has been startled. This woman is mad and spoke wildly. I will surely punish her severely as a warning to others. The Empress Dowager clutched her chest, her face still pale from the shock. Opening the skull. Such terrifying words. How did she dare say them? The Emperor handled it correctly. Such a witch cannot be kept. And her medicine. The Empress Dowager remembered she had already taken 2 pills and felt a sudden wave of lingering fear. Imperial Mother, rest easy. The Imperial Medical Academy will inspect that medicine thoroughly. If there is anything amiss, I will not show leniency. I comforted her. It is safer to leave your headaches to the Imperial Medical Academy. There are many famous doctors in the world. A way will be found. You must never listen to such absurd and heterodox theories. The Emperor is right. The Empress Dowager nodded, still shaken. Leaving the Palace of Benevolent Peace, my expression remained grim. A modern medical system? She can produce painkillers, perform surgery, and even dares to suggest a craniotomy. She is quite capable. Unfortunately, she used her skills in the wrong place, the wrong era, and on the wrong person. In this palace, how precious is the Empress Dowager's body? There are so many master physicians in the academy who can use decoctions and acupuncture to slowly manage her health. Even if they cannot cure her, they can keep her stable and safe. As a mere imperial consort, producing modern painkillers was already conspicuous enough, yet she dared to propose a craniotomy, a procedure that, in the eyes of the ancients, is no different from murder or witchcraft. That isn't being a brilliant doctor, that is seeking death. Did Cao Cao kill Hua Tuo out of mere suspicion? Perhaps partly. But deeper down, Hua Tuo's proposal to split the skull to remove the wind phlegm was a severe challenge to the era's fundamental understanding of the body and the limits of sovereign authority. It was an intolerable heresy. The same applies here. In my court and my harem, I will never allow the existence of such an uncontrollable person carrying dangerous, heterodox technology. If she can open the Empress Dowager's skull today, could she drug me tomorrow? Could she use even stranger methods to control others the day after? Not to mention her secret medicines of unknown origin. They work fast, but their ingredients are a mystery and their risks unknown. How could they be used long-term? I would rather not use them at all than fail to guard against them. Lin Ziyi, carrier of a modern medical system, died for inciting the masses with demonic talk and recklessly suggesting the evil art of craniotomy. Her system likely issued a prompt. Asterisk host behavior triggered era taboos and imperial power taboos. Mission failed. Asterisk, I rubbed the space between my eyebrows. Who will be next? Forget it. As they come, I'll just crush them one by one. Being an emperor is truly a fulfilling job. Besides handling state affairs, I have to work part-time as a cheat detector and a plot crusher. Lin Ziyi was banished to the cold palace, because of her craniotomy heresy, and her box of miraculously effective, brain-clearing, pain-relieving pills was confiscated by the Imperial Medical Academy for research. The imperial physicians spent half a month pondering over those small white tablets. Other than confirming they were non-toxic and excellent for pain relief, they remained completely ignorant of the ingredients. In the end, they could only conclude it was some miraculous medicine from a foreign land or a lost ancient formula, and the matter was dropped. Surface-level peace returned to the harem, though in private. The rumors about Lin Zi being divinely skilled in medicine but possessed by demons took on an even more mysterious hue. I didn't pay much attention to it. The Empress Dowager's chronic headaches would continue to be treated slowly by those old men in the academy with decoctions and acupuncture. As for the women in the harem, as long as they didn't stir up trouble and kept to their places to bear children, I couldn't be bothered to waste my energy on them. I just had a faint feeling that these quiet days probably wouldn't last long. Sure enough, after less than 3 months of peace, a new surprise arrived. It happened on a rather ordinary night. I had flipped Noble Lady Zhao's tablet. Noble Lady Zhao came from a family of generals. She had a spirited personality and a unique charm. After our amorous encounter, I leaned back on the couch somewhat lazily. She had already fallen into a deep sleep. Only a single dim palace lamp remained lit in the hall, and the moonlight outside the window was hazy. The eunuchs and maids on night duty had already retreated to the outer chamber, leaving the hall in silent stillness. I stared at the intricate embroidery on the canopy, but my mind began its habitual racing. I'd spent the whole day reviewing memorials. Military expenses for the northern border were still tight. The salt tax in Jiangnan needed another round of pressure. I had to find a way to displace those old, oily strips in the Ministry of Personnel. Tisk, being an emperor is more exhausting than being a corporate slave. At least a corporate slave gets overtime pay. I work year-round without rest and have to pay for it with my own empire. This noble lady Zhao has decent stamina, but she snores when she sleeps. While my thoughts drifted, the palace door was pushed open a crack. 2 low-ranking maids responsible for tidying up and bringing in hot water moved in silently with their heads bowed. This was the protocol, cleaning up afterward without disturbing the master's rest. I didn't mind them and continued my mental wandering. Asterisk, I have to listen to those old fogies argue during the morning court session tomorrow. Maybe I should just fake a headache. Asterisk, these women in the harem all look submissive, but they have more schemes than a honeycomb coal has holes. I should settle on the crown prince sooner to stop them from scheming. Asterisk, speaking of which, that new chef from Jiangnan in the imperial kitchen makes excellent crab roe, lion's head meatballs. I'll order them again for lunch tomorrow. Asterisk, the sound of hot water being poured into the bronze basin was a soft rustle. My eyelids grew heavy, and I was just about to drift off when suddenly an extremely faint, trembling, and incredulous gasp echoed in the silent hall. The sound came from the smaller of the 2 maids. She was bowing her head, adding water to the basin, her shoulders shaking almost imperceptibly. The water ladle in her hand nearly slipped. Though she steadied herself immediately, I still caught that momentary loss of composure. I lazily lifted my eyelids and glanced at her. A very ordinary little maid, about 15 or 16 years old. Her head was down, hiding her face, leaving only a sliver of her fair neck visible above the coarse cloth collar. Scared? That shouldn't be it. It wasn't like this was her first time on this duty. I didn't think much of it and closed my eyes again. My mind continued its aimless complaining. Asterisk, is it time to change the material of these bed curtains? They're a bit scratchy. Asterisk, what kind of incense is noble Lady Zhao wearing? It's a bit cloying after a while. Asterisk, I should probably go stay at the imperial villa in the suburbs for a few days next month to get some peace and quiet. Asterisk, clang, a sound, not loud, but piercingly clear in the silence. Something had knocked against the rim of the copper basin. I opened my eyes again, my sharp gaze sweeping over. It was that little palace maid again. She was clumsily steadying the wobbling basin, her head bowed even lower. I could see the tips of her ears flushing red. Her body was tensed as if she were desperately suppressing something. Something was wrong, very wrong. Even a novice shouldn't be this flustered. Moreover, her sharp intake of breath just now and her current loss of composure. It didn't look like fear. It looked more like she had heard something utterly shocking and incomprehensible. A thought stirred in my mind, and a ridiculous yet seemingly plausible theory, the only logical one in this situation, surfaced. Could it be another one with a gold finger? And this cheat was mind reading? Could she hear what I was thinking? To test this theory, I intentionally used modern slang to complain in my head. What is wrong with this maid? So clumsy, she nearly gave me a heart attack. Can't you be professional? Knock something over again and see if I don't dock your pay. Sure enough, the maid's body stiffened abruptly. Her knuckles turned white from gripping the basin, and she kept her head buried low. I could sense her utter shock and confusion, perhaps even the dazed realization of her worldview crumbling. Confirmed. Another one. This time it was mind-reading. I suddenly found it a bit amusing, yet also a bit tiresome. Mind-reading? In the world of female-oriented conquest novels, this must be a top-tier cheat, right? Being able to precisely grasp the emperor's heart, catering to his likes and avoiding his dislikes. It's an invincible weapon. Too bad for her. She probably never expected that the imperial thoughts she'd overhear wouldn't be deep, treacherous schemes or reflections on beauties and empires. Instead, they were the modern, trivial, and even slightly vulgar inner rants of a transmigrated corporate slave. Seeing her look like she was about to faint, I decided to add fuel to the fire. I continued spamming modern memes in my head that only I could understand. Who knows the bitterness of being emperor? Waking up at 5 a.m. to clock in for the morning court, working overtime at night to review memorials, no days off, no social security or housing fund, and the boss is a damn hands-off manager. The harem's KPIs are stressful as hell. If I have a son, I fear fratricide. If I have a daughter, I fear her being married off for political alliances. I want to retire. I want to lie flat. I want to go back to the modern world and be a happy fat nerd, eating chips and drinking Coke while binge-watching shows and playing games. Wouldn't that be great? The maid had begun to tremble slightly, and fine beads of sweat broke out on her forehead. She had likely never heard such treasonous, unorthodox imperial thoughts in her life. Her companion gave her a strange look and gently tugged at her sleeve. The two finally finished cleaning. Bowing and holding their breath, they began to back out of the room. Just as the maid reached the door, she seemed to make a sudden resolution. With a burst of do-or-die momentum, she lifted her head, shot a quick glance at me, and uttered a few syllables in a strange, barely audible breathy tone that was just loud enough for me to hear. How are you? Even though I was prepared, I was still stunned for a fraction of a second by this sudden, perfectly accented English greeting. Good grief. She's confirmed I'm a fellow countryman and is trying to use a secret code? In English? Bold, but also stupid. After she spoke, her face was so red it looked ready to bleed. Her eyes held a mixture of fear, expectation, and a hint of desperate madness. She stared at me, seemingly waiting for a response. I lay in bed, looking at her expressionlessly. The hall was deathly silent, save for noble Lady Zhao's steady breathing. A few seconds later, I spoke slowly. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried a bone-chilling coldness. I used the pure, official dialect of Dan. What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. Say it again. The expectation in the maid's eyes shattered instantly, replaced by disbelief and even deeper panic. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. She probably thought that as a fellow transmigrator, I would at least react to an English greeting, even if just with a hint of surprise. But I didn't. I simply looked at her, as if looking at a dead person, and asked her what she had said. Your servant, she stammered, her voice trembling out of tune as she tried to defend herself. I gave her no chance. Raising my voice, I barked toward the door. Wang Di Gui. Wang Digui, who had been waiting outside for some time, immediately pushed the door open. "Your servant is here." I pointed at the little palace maid, who had already collapsed onto the floor, her face as pale as ash. My voice was icy, devoid of any emotion. "This woman's behavior is suspicious, and her words are treacherous. She appears to speak foreign tongues, and is suspected of being a foreign spy. Take her away and interrogate her thoroughly." The 4 words "foreign spy" struck the little maid like a bolt of thunder. She finally broke down and began to shriek and wail, though this time her words were spoken in perfectly articulated Dayan dialect. "Your Majesty, have mercy. I'm not a spy. I can just hear your Majesty's inner thoughts. I am the same as your Majesty. I am a fellow countryman, your Majesty." In her desperation, she even blurted out mind-reading and fellow countryman. Unfortunately, it was too late. My gaze grew even colder, spreading demonic delusions. "You dare to slander the Emperor? Gag her. Drag her out." Although Wang Digui didn't fully understand the meaning of inner thoughts or fellow countrymen, the terms foreign tongue, spy, and demonic delusions were more than enough for him to execute the order. 2 burly eunuchs stepped forward immediately, ruthlessly stuffing a wad of cloth into the maid's mouth. They showed no mercy as they dragged her limp, trembling body out of the room. The screaming stopped abruptly. Silence returned to the hall, leaving only the mist rising from the bronze basin. Consort Zhao seemed to have been disturbed, letting out a muddled groan in her sleep. I patted her gently. "It's nothing. Go back to sleep." She mumbled something and fell back into a deep slumber. I lay there, but sleep eluded me. Mind reading? Hearing my inner thoughts? This golden finger was indeed godlike. If used for the right purposes, it might have been an excellent asset. But unfortunately, its host was a female-oriented fiction, transmigrator, whose head was filled with conquering the Emperor and one life, one couple. The moment she heard my thoughts, her first instinct wasn't to think, "This Emperor has so much inner monologue. How interesting." Or, "So the Emperor has so many worries." And certainly not, "I can use this ability to help share his burdens." Instead, she couldn't wait to jump out and use English as a secret code, attempting to identify herself as a peer. And then what? Then, she would likely adopt the mindset of fellow travelers in a strange land and begin her grand quest of seduction, with the ultimate goal of making me dismiss the imperial harem to favor her alone. She didn't understand at all that for an emperor, especially one who had transmigrated into the role, the existence of such an ability in someone else was a terrifying thing. It meant that all my mental activities, all my true thoughts, all my modern-minded cynicism, and even the uncertainty and alienation I felt toward this world would be exposed to another person. This was a threat more lethal than any blade. Today, she might be excited by our shared origins. Tomorrow, she might leak my thoughts or exploit them out of jealousy, fear, or profit. The human heart is the most uncontrollable thing of all. How much more so the heart of a transmigrated woman obsessed with romantic fantasies and a seduction mission? Therefore, even if she possessed the most heaven-defying golden finger, she was destined for a dead end with me. The only difference was whether her death would be quick or agonizing. A foreign spy. This reason was sufficient, and it was enough to keep her quiet. Who would believe the ravings of a low-ranking maid claiming to hear the Emperor's thoughts? They would only see her as a lunatic babbling nonsense to escape her crimes. As for those few words of English, they only served to confirm the suspicion that she was fluent in a foreign tongue. In this era, what else could a low-born servant who spoke the language of barbarians be, if not a spy? I rolled over, the slight annoyance I felt from having my privacy invaded gradually giving way to a sense of absurd amusement. These female-oriented novel protagonists, bearing all sorts of gold fingers, arrived one after another, convinced that a bit of uniqueness would allow them to conquer an emperor's heart and achieve the grand feat of a lifelong monogamous romance. And the result? The one who wanted to conquer my stomach with milk tea died because she didn't follow the rules. The one who tried to dazzle me by plagiarizing poetry died of being bestowed a marriage for her deep sentiment. The one who wanted to be a national preceptor by predicting the future died for misleading the masses with demonic talk. The one who tried to monopolize my offspring with a fertility system died because her ovulation cycle didn't match up. The one who tried to save lives with modern craniotomy died for harming people with sorcery. And now, this one with the strongest mind-reading ability died as a foreign spy. Their cheats were utterly fragile against absolute imperial power, strict palace regulations, and an unconventional transmigrated emperor like me who knew their tropes inside out. If anything, these cheats became the death warrants that hastened their ends. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but snark to myself. Transmigration is risky. Pursuing a romantic target requires caution, especially when targeting an emperor, a high-risk profession. Without real skill, relying solely on system cheats, you won't even know how you died. It is more practical to just be a proper emperor, enjoy my harem, and govern my vast territory. Thinking about it like that makes me feel much better. Since then, the inner palace seemed to have truly quieted down for a long time. Perhaps my methods were so efficient that those protagonists still in hiding or on their way were deterred. Or perhaps this world finally realized that sending conquerors to a thick-skinned, odd-thinking emperor like me was a pure waste of energy. My life in the harem returned to its normal track. Imperial selections were held as usual, bringing in daughters of noble families with clean backgrounds and dignified manners. Occasionally, there were some livelier ones, but all remained within the bounds of etiquette. They vied for favor, got jealous, and played harmless little games, competing secretly over the education of princes and princesses, but there were no more eccentricities with bizarre cheats and a singular goal of monogamy. State affairs also proceeded systematically. The northern borders were stable. The south saw bountiful harvests, and the treasury gradually filled. Using a few minor natural and man-made disasters, I cleaned up the bureaucracy and promoted several capable, relatively honest officials. My throne felt quite secure. Princes and princesses were born one after another, growing up healthy. Following the hierarchy of birth, I established a crown prince early on and appointed a strict, learned tutor. My other sons were also provided for, some in the military, some in literature, others placed with reliable royal uncles for experience. My daughters were pampered, yet they learned all the necessary etiquette, arts, and literature. They would eventually shoulder their responsibilities as imperial princesses, whether to appease powerful ministers or for diplomatic marriages. Occasionally, sporadic news would reach me. For instance, the newly taken concubine of a border general was said to be able to make a rare treat called cake and was greatly favored, only to be quickly discarded and sent to a manor for attempting to interfere in military affairs. Or perhaps the daughter of a wealthy merchant in Jiangnan became famous for a poem in a style never seen before, drawing countless admirers, only to marry a soldier who scoffed at her work. It was said she cried at her bridal sedan on her wedding day about the lack of a true soulmate. Or the daughter of a minor official in the Southwest who suddenly mastered a miraculous Caesarean technique, saving many women in difficult labor and being hailed as a living Guanyin, only to be arrested by local authorities for practicing sorcery and deluding the masses. It was later found she used secret medicines and strange techniques. Though she harmed no one, she was banned from practicing it again. Hearing these things, I usually just brushed them off with a smile, continuing to review my memorials or playing with my youngest daughter, who had just learned to call me father. These were likely the protagonists who hadn't given up or who had stumbled into this world by mistake, continuing to enact their legends, successful or otherwise, using their gold fingers elsewhere. It's just that they can no longer disturb me. Time flowed like a river. I sat in this position for over 40 years. I saw off the Empress Dowager, outlasted batch after batch of veteran ministers, and watched the Crown Prince grow mature and steady, capable of handling matters on his own. Though there were occasional frictions at the borders, things were generally peaceful. The people weren't exactly prosperous, but famine and war were rare. In my harem, that so-called woman of destiny never appeared. No one ever forced me to clear the palaces for a single love. Concubines came and went, grew old and fell ill, and new candidates were brought in to fill their places. Princes and princesses branched out, and the imperial family's lineage flourished with each passing day. I always maintained the mindset and principles of conduct expected of a normal emperor, balancing the court, wielding power, continuing the bloodline, and enjoying life. Occasionally, I would use a modern person's perspective to internally mock the tedious etiquette, the boring court sessions, or some particularly troublesome concubine, but I never let anyone know. Finally, on a day of blooming spring flowers, as the retired Emperor Emeritus, I lay in a rocking chair, basking in the sun and listening to the distant sounds of my great-grandchildren playing, and peacefully closed my eyes. In my ears, there still seemed to linger that little palace maid's mosquito faint, "How are you?" from all those years ago, along with the countless similar or different female leads who followed. In my imperial career, they were nothing more than tiny, insignificant splashes that quickly vanished amidst the red walls of the deep palace and the dust of history. In this transmigrated life of mine, there was no earth-shattering romance, no unique soulmate, and not even any great achievements particularly worth bragging about. But I held the throne steadily, died a natural death in old age, and was surrounded by a house full of children and grandchildren. For a former corporate slave, for a transmigrated emperor who had seen through the tropes of female-oriented romance novels, this ending was pretty good.